Kösem Sultan, Turkish pronunciation, Kösem Sultan, c. 1589, September 2, 1651, also known as Mahpeyker Sultan, Turkish pronunciation, Mahpejğer Sultan, Mahpeyker, was one of the most powerful women in Ottoman history. Kösem achieved power and influenced the politics of the Ottoman Empire when she became Haseki Sultan as favorite consort and later legal wife of Ottoman Sultan Ahmed I, r. 1603, 1617, and Valide Sultan as mother of Murad IV, r. 1623, 1640, and Ibrahim, r. 1640, 1648, and grandmother of Mehmed IV, r. 1648, 1687. She was one of the prominent figures during the Sultanate of Women. Kösem lived in the Ottoman Empire during the reign of 6 sultans, Ahmed I, Mustafa I, Osman II, Murad IV, Ibrahim, and Mehmed IV. After her death, she was known by the names Vālide-i Muazzama, Magnificent Mother, Vālide-i Maṭūle, Murdered Mother, and Vālide-i, Martyred Mother. Kösem is generally said to be of Greek origin, the daughter of a priest on the island of Tinos whose maiden name was Anastasia, but these views do not seem reliable. She was bought as a slave by the Bosnian governor, and sent, at the age of 15, to the harem of Sultan Ahmed I. Upon her conversion to Islam, her name was changed to Mahpeyker, moon-faced, meaning beautiful, and later by Sultan Ahmed I to Kösem. Haseki Sultan, the imperial consort. In the early reign of Ahmed, there was a change in the imperial harem hierarchy. Haseki Sultan, Ahmed's powerful grandmother who continued to manage the harem, was deprived of power and retired in the old palace, Eski Saray, in January 1604. 1 year later, Handan Sultan, Ahmed's mother who had become the chief of the imperial harem as Valide Sultan, died in November 1605. This condition permitted the rise of Kösem to the top of the imperial harem hierarchy. As a Haseki Sultan to Ahmed I, she had a long career as a guardian of Sayyds. It is possible that the significant modifications in the pattern of succession to the throne during Ahmed's time owed something to her efforts. She must have realized the personal gain that might stem from the transition to seniority, coupled with the fact that she was no longer Haseki but had son-in-waiting. According to Venetian ambassador, Kösem lobbied to spare Mustafa the fate of fratricide with the ulterior goal of saving her own son from the same fate. During her time as Haseki Sultan, Kösem received 1,000 aspers a day. Venetian ambassador Contarini reported the beating of a woman ordered by the Sultan in 1612. The woman who had irritated Kösem may be identified as her fellow consort Mahpeyker. Kösem also made efforts to keep her brother-in-law, Mustafa, safe from execution, and saw an obstacle in Mahpeyker who was lobbying in favor of her own son. Like his parents, Ahmed died at a young age, 27 years, on November 22, 1617. This made Kösem lose her position in Topkapi Palace and she retired in the old palace during the reign of her brother-in-law Mustafa I and stepson Osman II. Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother. First tenure. Kösem came back in power when her son ascended to the throne on September 10, 1623 as Murad IV. Since her son was a minor, she was appointed not only as a Valide Sultan but also, as an official regent, Nabi Sultanate, during his minority, from her son's ascension on September 10, 1623 until May 18, 1632. During most of Murad IV's reign, she essentially ruled through him and effectively ran the empire, attending meetings of the Divan, cabinet, from behind a curtain, even after 1632, when she was no longer regent. Second tenure. Kösem's other son, Ibrahim, lived in terror of being the next of his brothers to be executed by Murad's order. His life was only saved by the intercession of his mother Kösem Sultan. After Murad's death, Ibrahim was left the sole surviving prince of the dynasty. Upon being asked by the Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha to assume the Sultanate, Ibrahim suspected Murad was still alive and plotting to trap him. It took the combined persuasion of Kosem and the Grand Vizier, and personal examination of his brother's dead body, to make Ibrahim accept the throne. When Ibrahim succeeded his brother in 1640, he proved too mentally unstable to rule. This enabled Kosem to continue in power. He was encouraged by his mother to distract himself with harem girls. The distractions of the harem allowed Kosem to gain power and rule in his name, yet even she fell victim to the Sultan's disfavor and left the imperial palace. Ibrahim's behavior sparked talks of deposing the Sultan. In 1647, the Grand Vizier Sulh Pasha, Kösem Sultan, and the Seyhil-Ilam Abdurrahim Effendi unsuccessfully plotted to depose the Sultan and replace him with one of his sons. Sulh Pasha was executed and Kösem Sultan was exiled from the harem. The next year the Janissaries and members of the ulama revolted. On August 8, 1648, Ibrahim was dethroned, seized, and imprisoned in Topkapi Palace. Kösem gave consent to her son's fall, saying in the end he will leave neither you nor me alive. We will lose control of the government. The whole society is in ruins. Have him removed from the throne immediately. The new Grand Vizier, Sofa Mehmed Pasha, petitioned the Sheikh-ul-Islam for a fatwa sanctioning Ibrahim's execution. It was granted, with the message if there are two caliphs, kill one of them. Kösem also gave her consent. 2 executioners were sent. Ibrahim was strangled on August 18, 1648. Third tenure. Eventually Kösem presented her 7-year-old grandson Mehmed IV to the divan with the words "Here he is, see what you can do with him." Thus, she declared herself regent for the second time, and ruled openly again between 1648 and 1651. At the head of the Ottoman Empire stood the child Sultan, Mehmed IV. With Mehmed's ascendancy, the position of Valide Sultan, mother of the reigning Sultan, should have gone to his mother Turhan Haseki Sultan. However, Turhan was overlooked due to her youth and inexperience. Instead Kösem Sultan was reinstated to this high position. Kösem Sultan was a Valide, mother, under 2 sons, thus having the more experience of the 2 women. Death. It was Mehmed IV's mother, Turhan Haseki, who proved to be Kösem's nemesis. When she was about 12 years old, Turhan was sent to the Topkapi Palace as a gift, from the Khan of Crimea, to Kösem Sultan. It was probably Kösem Sultan who gave Turhan Haseki to Ibrahim as a concubine. Turhan turned out to be too ambitious a woman to lose such a high position without a fight. In her struggle to become Valide Sultan, Turhan was supported by the chief black eunuch in her household and the Grand Vizier, while Kösem was supported by the Janissary corps. Although Kösem's position as Valide was seen as the best for the government, the people resented the influence of the Janissaries on the government. In this power struggle, Kösem planned to dethrone Mehmed and replace him with another young grandson. According to one historian, this switching had more to do with replacing an ambitious daughter-in-law with one who was more easily controlled. The plan was unsuccessful as it was reported to Turhan by Maleki Hatun, one of Kösem's slaves, that Kösem was said to be plotting Mehmed's removal and replacement by another grandson with a more pliant mother. Whether Turhan sanctioned it or not, Kösem Sultan was murdered 3 years after becoming regent for her young grandson. It is rumored that Turhan ordered Kösem's assassination. Furthermore, some have speculated that Kösem was strangled with a curtain by the chief black eunuch of the harem, Tal Suleiman. The Ottoman renegade Babovi, relying on an informant in the harem, states that Kösem was strangled with her own hair. After her death her body was taken from Topkapi to the Old Palace, Eski Sarai, and then buried in the mausoleum of her husband Ahmed I. Charities. Kösem made charities and donations both for people and ruling class in the state. She visited the prisons every year, paid the debts of imprisoned people, supplied the trousseaux of daughters of poor families and servant girls trained by her, wedded them, and won their confidence. She had Sinalai Mosque and a school near it constructed in Üsküdar in 1640, and she also had the small mosques and fountain of the Valide Madrasa of Anadolu Kavaji, fountain in Yeni Kapı, Valide Han mosques, fountains in Besiktas and Eyüp and Valide Caravanserai in Kakmakçılar Yakası built. It is also known that she had also laid fountains built outside the city of Istanbul. She financed irrigation works in Egypt and provided relief for the poor people of Mecca. Kösem was renowned for her charity work and for freeing her slaves after 3 years of service. When she died, the people of Constantinople observed 3 days of mourning.